Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Martin Willis, your host, and we have a great guest. His name is Samuel Chong, and he's a great guy. He's an attorney, a translator, lives in Southern California. We're going to be talking about some things that, a book that's kind of controversial. I'll be asking him some questions and to get into that a little later as we go along. A little housekeeping this time. I just want to talk about a couple of things. And well, unfortunately, it's a little bit on the negative side, but bear with me. The audio blogs. Okay, the audio blogs, it seems like no matter what format I've been putting them in on YouTube, I'm talking about, that I get a lot of comments that are only complaints, very low. It's kind of a low downloads, and that maybe 400 to 600, something like that, compared to the shows that I do here. Anyway, it's a lot of work for a lot of complaints. So I decided to switch them to just audio. So if you want to listen to the audio blogs, they'll be every week in the audio podcast feed. Now, if you like to listen to the audio podcast feed, this show is in, as far as I know, it's on about every platform there is where you can find your podcasts. And also, if you would like to listen to it completely ad-free it's only $2 or more a month, Patreon is the way to go with that. It has a feed that's all set up that you can put on any podcast player. And there's a little simple setup to that. They explain it to you when you join for $2 or more a month. And that you can find over at podcastufo.com. So, and while you're over at podcastufo.com, you can see our blog this week. It's a 1978 Russian contactee case. There's hundreds of blogs. We have a blog every single week. And so you can check that out over at Podcast UFO. A lot of historic, great cases by our great blogger, author, Charles Lear. So check out Podcast UFO and the blogs over there. So there are two things I'm going to ask of you. If you enjoy the show, I'd really like some help from you. If you wouldn't mind taking just a little bit of time, and if you could hit the subscribe button on YouTube. You don't have to hit the notification button if you don't want to get emails for upcoming shows. But if you hit that just to subscribe to the show, that would help us out quite a bit, actually. And it's free. It doesn't cost anything. And again, you only get notifications if you hit the bell. Secondly, I'm wondering what people think about the 2 shows per week. I have had such little feedback about that. When I started, I just don't know what you think, and I'd really like to know what you think. So there are a ton of UFO shows. I was talking to Samuel, before the show started, about how many shows are out. I've been told there's 500 shows on UFOs out there. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, I do appreciate everyone that listens, and there are some longtime listeners that go all the way back. This show's a kind of it is an old show, and I think it might be the longest running show on the UFO topic. Started in 2011, over 700 shows. So anyway, if you're a longtime listener or you just enjoy the show, I could use the help with that. For finding out whether you want 2 shows a week or is one okay? Is it saturation to have 2? And so I created a link to a survey that's on podcastufo.com. So it's real simple. You just click the link below that's in the show text, or it's in the audio text when you're listening to the podcast. And if you just go down, you click the link, it'll bring you to the website. It'll bring you to the survey on the website. And it's just you answer, do you want the 2 shows a week? Yes, no, maybe. I don't know why I put maybe in there. That may be a mistake. Or you can also leave a comment below too. I have a little comment field and you can leave that. So just check out in the text below, whether you're listening to this YouTube or you are listening to the audio, it'll be in all the podcasts. The link will be right there to click. And I really would appreciate your feedback because I really get to decide. It's a lot of work to do 2 shows a week. It may not seem like it, but I have to be here at a certain time. And there's a lot of, background work that I have to do. So I just want to know if it's worth it. If you're enjoying it enough, I'll continue to do it. That's what I will do. So I want to thank everyone in chat. Thank you for being here. We got Alien Girl 77. We got Bob Lazar again, but a different Bob Lazar. We've had the Bob Lazar according to himself. And then we have a new Bob Lazar type person in there. Thank you for being here. Duckhead, you're here a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it. And Christopher Alexander, you're here a lot. I do appreciate that too. And again, like I said, everyone that's listens to the show and supports the show just by being here, I do appreciate you all. You know, I think I've done enough talking tonight, and I'm here to bring in my guests. And Samuel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Martin.
Yes, and you've done, you've been on a couple of shows talking about. I know you were hooked up with a little bit with Steve Bassett, who you and I were talking off air, and when no one else would come on my show back in 2011 to be my first guest, Steve Bassett said, "Sure, I'll do it." And so I have a warm spot in my heart for Steve Bassett. So how did you get connected to Steve Bassett?
I just sent him an email, and also I met him a few times at the Contact in the Desert conference.
Oh yeah, and you also do you do things with Danny Sheehan, or you just good friends with him?
I was an intern when I was in law school, and I
Oh.
worked for him quite a bit.
Oh, is that right? Now, is that how you get your interest in this topic to begin with?
Yes, first I actually saw the documentary of Stephen Greer, and I looked at everyone, and then I saw this curly-haired guy and a lawyer, and
Yeah,
I
he's
think he
got
would be
quite
a
the
very
hair.
good yes.
Yeah.
And I think he would be a very good bridge between the people who don't believe anything about the UFOs and the people who do. So that's why I contacted him.
Yes, he's a busy guy. He has done a lot to try to move the needle in this, and I was kind of surprised at one point when I saw that he and Stephen Bassett sort of connected, and I mean they both have. I think that's great when that happens. I've talked to other people that have different things like UFO detection. I said, well, why don't you hook up with this guy and this guy? He's already doing that, and so I love when people collaborate, and it makes a lot of sense. There's more power in numbers, so it's good that that those two are working together basically.
Exactly right. Yes, and it also is an international phenomenon too. So I'm trying to bridge everyone, and then to also people in different countries.
Yeah, that's right. So this is for someone that doesn't know where we're talking about Danny Sheehan here. This is Danny right here. So you can spot him a mile away, like at Contact in the Desert. I could see like way off in the distance. Well, there's Danny way over there. Yeah. But so anyway, basically you're here to talk about you got involved in a very interesting book. How did that happen?
Well, in China, there was a period of time in which the government was open to allowing information about UFOs or UAPs to be read by the people over there. So there was a magazine called UFO Magazine in the 1980s. And there was a news story saying that there was a guy, like an engineer or physicist, who was taken by the ETs to their spacecraft. And then he was told that even though Einstein laid the three fundamental principles of modern physics, he made a mistake that resulted in us believing that we cannot travel faster than the speed of light. And I was thinking, if the ETs can come and visit us, they must have advanced technologies and knowledge. We can just learn from the ETs. So in my subconscious mind, I was always looking for books written by ET contactees. After I came here, I read a lot, but a lot of the books were just seem to be like channel information without foundations. But this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, has specific verifiable facts that I was able to verify and investigate later.
Okay, so we should, when we get into the different things, the different claims, I would like to hear what you consider facts, where you chase this down. Now, did you use any of your law type a degree in learning to investigate these type of things? I don't know exactly what type of law you actually practice.
I do general practice.
General
So
practice.
general
So you
practice.
you could have investigative skills you learned then, basically.
Yes. I mean, there's an interesting part in the book that says the author, Michel Demarquet, asked the ETs to give him a medal, a proof, so that he can show people on Earth that he really did have this experience. And by the way, this book talks about his journey, 9-day journey to a different planet called Thiaoouba, and then came back. And then the ETs refuse to give him the medal because the ETs say that you people on Earth seek for proof, additional proof and more proof. If I give you a medal, then people are not going to believe you still because they're going to say that you have some kind of skills or through alchemy, you made this medal that doesn't exist on Earth. So they really, he actually ETs to give him a medal, but the ETs refused. So I think this is the state of world or that we are in right now. People just want to seek out for proof. But this book has a lot of proof that I was able to verify. The book was actually written in 1989. He had an encounter in 1987, and the book got published in Australia in 1993. And I did some research. Internet went into the homes of the people in Cairns, Queensland, Australia in the mid 1990s, years after he got the book published and years after he got the book written. But the book talks about the events and things that were later proven and discovered to be true years after the book was published. For example, when he entered into the spacecraft, the ETs used yellow light and blue light to disinfect him. And years later, Harvard Medical School has a research paper indicating that certain wavelengths of blue light have antibacterial, antiviral effects. And years later, there was also another peer-reviewed paper says that yellow light has antibacterial effects. And there are also facts in the book that says that there are ET bases on the far side of the moon and explains why there are artificial structures, and also talks about life on Mars back 1.35 million years ago, explains why that Mars has become a desert planet and why it's not a good idea for us to migrate to Mars, because actually we all came from different planets. And because the planets all planets have a lifetime, when the core of the planet dies down or cools down, then the planet doesn't have the electromagnetic force to capture the atmosphere anymore. So the planet becomes like a desert, like Mars. So people have to migrate to different planets over time in order to survive as species. And the book also has other interesting facts, such as the Great Pyramid of Egypt, how it was built and why it was built, and things like this. I think the book has a lot of very interesting details that deserve special attention.
Well, okay. And so this, I'm a little bit confused. Did you say that the medal, he refused to take the medal? Did you say that?
No, I mean, he asked for a medal that doesn't exist on
I see.
Earth, but
Yeah.
the ETs refused to give it to him.
Okay. All right. All right. So, so what's basically convincing about that to you? I mean, why wouldn't he take that? You just think that did he say that there's, people won't believe that?
Yeah, the ETs say that even if they give him like a medal that doesn't exist on Earth, people still wouldn't believe him because there are always skeptical people who would say that, oh, you are a smart person with knowledge of alchemy and you produce this medal on Earth just to presume that you got it from the ETs. People are not going to believe you either way. So what's the purpose, what's the use to give you a medal? So this is what gets interesting, that the book contains a lot of very like a lot of interesting details, like auras, human energy fields, the missing 411 cases by a private investigator called David Paulides,
Yeah.
explaining why people just can't vanish in the national parks in the US and Canada. At the same time, also explaining why, if you observe the sky, you're going to see UFOs or UAPs frequently appear at a specific location in the sky. This is because the ETs use what we would call portals or warps to come in and get out of Earth, because they would take advantage of parallel universe to hide themselves, so that we wouldn't be paranoid, or most people wouldn't be paranoid.
Well, a question that I often ask in a situation like this is, what would make, in your opinion or your research that you've done, what would make us so special if there are, say, tens of thousands of intelligent species throughout the universe, or millions or hundreds of millions or even billions of intelligence species? Why would we be so special that we'd have portals here and we'd have, them coming here, all these different aliens coming here? I mean, it's just for your opinion.
We are actually not very special. There are hundreds of ET species just in our Milky Way galaxy, and we are actually not very advanced. Sorry to say that, but we live on a very primitive planet. Um, saying that, I mean, like we are living on Category 1 planet, and there are a total of different categories of planets, total of 9 different categories. And they come to visit us. I mean, some of them come according to the book, the Theobans come to help us and to give us a nudge to really live more spiritually. They actually have visited us in the ancient past, as documented in the stories, as recorded in the Bible, the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. And also, according to them, there are other ETs who are not so advanced, such as the ones whose spacecraft crashed on Earth, that the US government has been involved in reverse engineering the technologies of the ones that crashed on Earth. I mean, I would say that we should focus our attention on the ones who did not and will never crash on Earth, the more advanced ETs who have been helping us and leading us to the right direction. Because I truly believe that we should learn from the masters, not from the ones whose spacecraft crashed on Earth. And I think the Chinese are really smart on that.
About that. Well, I mean, we have to get through our bottleneck of technology and develop as a species without wiping ourselves out. And right now we have this AI situation, and if it gets to superior intelligence, above human intelligence, we're not going to be able to control it. They already are talking about, some of these AI programs, they don't even know how they work, and they're continuing to kind of build on themselves. And it's not, like the zeros and twos, it's all numbers, it's all work off of that, but it's becoming unpredictable. So what I'm saying is we have to get, right now, I think we have more of a issue with getting through the AI technology and AGI and to move forward. Because if that gets out of control, then we're going to need intervention from another species to survive. That's
Yes, the ETs actually warn us about technology. It talks about technology is leading us into a more materialistic world rather than more spiritual world. It's suggesting that technology can be a double-edged sword. We should use technology to promote spirituality or to live more spiritual life instead of being restrained into this kind of materialistic wealth accumulation world. So I think the ETs have been warning us about the dangers facing us in the future. And it actually talks about the 4 real dangers on Earth. Number 1, money. Number 2, politicians. Number 3, journalists and drugs. And number 4, religions. Religions, plural.
Those are the stumbling blocks. Is that what you're saying? What are the 4 you just mentioned there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we all know the dangers of most of the things that the ETs have been warning us. And actually, I would compare this book to be the modern version of the book of Enoch. Because if you read the Bible, you will know that Enoch was taken by gods or the Jehovah's. The pronunciation of Jehovah or Theoban. When you speak it in French, it will be Jehovah. It's very similar to the pronunciation of Jehovah. So when Enoch was taken away by the Jehovahs, and he and there's a book of Enoch, and 40 or 80 years after, his great grandson Noah was told to build the ark. And Michel Desmarquet was taken by the ETs in 1987. And you can imagine what's going to happen 40 or 80 years after. So we are at a very critical moment of time, and we have to make the right choices. And the ETs are telling us that we should focus more on the spiritual development.
Yes, I mean, if we don't, if we don't develop in that way, then you're right. I mean, as far as if we don't develop in a more of a spiritual way and, do unto others type of situation, then yeah, I mean, it's we can see the friction in the world, and I have a number of people that will send me an email saying, I love your show. It keeps me from looking at what's happening in the world today. So I'm glad I can at least do that and talk about this topic because it's fascinating, and it is something that we really haven't solved yet, and it's really interesting just trying to figure it out, basically.
Yes, and more amazingly, the book actually talks about how our world was created and where we all came from. It also actually solve an interesting question that I had in my mind, was that were the ETs also created by the creator? And the answer is yes. So when the creator, which is a pure spirit, some people would call the creator God, or the great ether. When the creator created everything, it created the stars, the planets, animals, plants, human beings, as well as the ETs on different planets. So, but for human beings and ETs, we are special because when the creator created every one of us, it actually inserted a tiny portion of itself to each one of our astral bodies. So we don't just have our physical body, we also have our astral bodies. And the creator wants to experience everything that we experience. So we are part of the creator, and the creator is part of us. So we are spiritual, we are actually physical beings having a spiritual experience, and spiritual beings having a physical experience. So in other words, we have to send constant feedback to the creator through our experiences. And it really depends how we respond to the challenges we face in our lifetime in order to progress and to grow more spiritually.
And how does one get out of the technology focus and the materialism focus and change on a personal level? Because I mean, the old saying, the money's the root of all evil, or lack of money is the root of all evil, whatever the saying is. I was talking earlier a few minutes ago about AI and the direction it's going, the scary direction it's going in. There's a great new podcast out there I'd like for people to check out if you have an interest in that. And it's called The Last Invention. So check that out if you can. It's great. So, but the threat of one of the threats of AI is that there's going to be so much power in so few very wealthy hands. And because of those people they're dumping, I think it's over $1 trillion in AI, and a lot of jobs are going to go away, and so these people will be in control. A lot of people will be a few people will be in control of the masses, and that's scary to me. I don't want to focus on that at all, but I'm just wondering, how do we get through how can we get to the point where there can be more spirituality and more brotherhood and less materialism and greed for money?
Yeah, I mean, we should be spiritual but not religious. We should follow the teachings of Christ rather than the doctrines of the church. So I think, for people in the Western world, if they know the Bible, just follow what Moses or Jesus Christ taught us. the Ten Commandments is actually a very good principle how we live our lives, and also the teachings of Christ to love one another. And those are the spiritual lessons that the masters have taught us or taught us in the past. And I think if you really read the Bible, you're going to wonder, like, who really parted the sea for Moses, leading the Hebrews out of Egypt and giving them the Ten Commandments, and then especially parting the sea of reeds and also giving them mannas to eat. Like, it just like the Catholic people believe that God, the Creator, doesn't have a face. No one has seen God. But who are the angels or the people who appeared in front of Moses? And those are actually explained in the book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, and who was really Jesus and Christ. So that book actually explains everything. So we should follow the principles and the teachings of the spiritual masters, including Moses and Christ. And for people in China, they can focus more on the teachings of Taoism or Lao Tzu. And for people in India, they can just meditate and pray, meditate and also become more spiritual, like the yogis. And I think the book teaches us that if you really want to elevate yourself, you should meditate and concentrate. And actually, this is the way to really develop your spirituality and psychic abilities as well. And the book talks at length regarding how the ETs performed psychic abilities such as levitation, manifesting or materializing objects, communicating through telepathy, and also healing all the diseases you can think of. And the ETs actually are so advanced that they don't need to eat for 48 hours, and they're able to create an adult human being in 24 hours.
Now,
And
is that in that book? Is that what you're saying?
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting claims there. Here's a question. I'm going to have anyone that wants to pose a question, please put in caps. Like Christopher, I'll get to your question in just a minute. But how are number 3 journalists and drugs a threat? Can you be more specific?
So we live in a world to experience and to improve our spirituality, and the psyche becomes very important, and how we feel certain things. If journalists want to, or the media company want to make money, they would tend to report on the negative news, the sensational news.
Absolutely.
For example, the crimes and also the terrors to attract readers. But those things are not good for our psyche. And I think people should focus more on the good news. There is a website called the Good News Network.
Yes, my blogger Charles Lear told me about that. Sent me the link. The Good News Network every day has great stories. So if you want to turn away from the news, check that out. But anyway, yes, go ahead.
And the importance of the psyche is that the psyche or our mindset affects the chakras, and the chakras affect our auras, and the auras affect our physical body. And if you keep your mindset positive or correct, then you're going to, in a sense, improve your physical health. So that's about journalism or journalists. And about the drugs, the author meant hallucinogenic drugs. And I know a lot of people who are in the spiritual world want to experience using hallucinogenic materials or herbs to do that. But the book, I mean, the ETs warn us that if you use that, in essence, they're actually moving your astral body into a place in which it is not supposed to be, and to give you like a false paradigm to experience. You can meditate and experience the spiritual world naturally and more organically. If you use drugs, then it's probably going to damage your astral body. And I actually try to prove it by asking aura readers, people who can see the colors of auras, and to see if using drugs would affect their auras. And the answer is positive, yes. Not only do they affect the auras, they're actually going to make the auras look very muddy and ugly, and it's going to take a long time for them to repair. And a few things would affect the auras: hallucinogenic drugs, alcohol, and cigarettes, and also noise to a certain extent.
Very interesting. Here's another question here. Do you think it's likely that ET's artificial intelligence is able to communicate directly with our artificial intelligence? And if so, what are they talking about? That's a good question.
Yeah, so the ETs don't really have artificial intelligence because there's no need to. They are able to really kind of download information from each other without any kind of physical medium. So Mishlove, when he was on the planet Thiaoouba, he actually saw the Theobans, the ETs, downloading information from each other. So there's no need to remember anything. They just get information from others. And so there's no artificial intelligence on the planet Thiaoouba. We have artificial intelligence on Earth because we don't have the psychic abilities to get information from one another. At least most people don't, but some people do. And I know some of them because they practice meditation. So I think this is a very interesting question.
So if some of the readers find this particular book you're talking about, the idea is uplifting, and some of them may see this as like an imaginative fiction, but how do you respond to people say that there's no proof, or even that parts of the book, are outdated or problematic?
Well, actually, the book talks about a lot of the things that were later proven to be true years after it was published. For example, the author lived in Cairns, Queensland, Australia. And then before he went to the planet Thiaoouba, he never traveled to Japan. But I would guarantee that very few people know about that there's a tomb of Jesus in Shingo Village, Japan. You can look it up nowadays on the internet. But back then in 1983 or before that, very few people knew about this. And the book describes what the tomb looks like in details. How could the author have known this if he never traveled to Japan? I mean, this book has a lot of information that is so specific that I sometimes wonder, like, if people really want to take the time to do additional research. And it actually explains why there's no record of Jesus in the Bible performing miracles before he began preaching, and why some people say that Jesus went to India, and why suddenly after Christ began preaching, when he saw his mother, he didn't call her mother, he called her a woman. And also why Jewish people excel at everything that they do. For example, Jewish people account only for about 0.2% of world population, but 22% Nobel Prize winners are Jewish people. And it's just disproportionately represented. And I think, and this book actually explains why that's the case, and why the Hebrews were the chosen people. Very reasonable explanations. And I think if you really read into the book, you're going to uncover a lot of the mysteries that people have been wondering about. So I'm a lawyer and also a certified court interpreter. I know by the percentage of population, like Jewish people are far more represented in the professional industries, such as lawyers, attorneys, or doctors, or scientists, and also even some of the well-known artists and writers are Jewish people. Why they excel at everything they do, there's an explanation, there's a reason for that, and the book talks about it.
And can you give us a nutshell answer why?
I would leave it to the readers. I try to explain, but I think sometimes because my first language is not English, my language ability fails me. I would suggest people to read about it. It actually involves where we all came from originally. we all came from different planets. The blacks and the yellows came from a planet, and the Caucasians came from a different planet. The ancestors of the Polynesians came from a different planet. And the book talks about ancient civilizations and also where the Hebrews came from. It's a book that really answers a lot of the paranormal mysteries in the world.
It's funny when I don't think I've ever told this story before, but when I was in high school, I wrote an essay basically saying that, and I wasn't even into the UFO topic or anything, but I was explaining the reason that we have all the different races all over the world is that we were basically seeded from different planets. And I actually got an A on the, I try to make it, sort of like a story and, but that was a long time ago. But it was kind of, it's kind of interesting to hear you say that when that was, something, one of the
Yes.
few A's that I got in that particular, with that particular teacher back then.
Yes, that's true because we did come from different planets originally, and there's actually proof on that. The proof is that when you look at Mars, there are artificial structures, and people used to live on Mars. There were people who used to live on Mars, and because the planet, the core of the planet cools down, and that's why we have to migrate to a different planet. So this is the reason why the blacks and the yellows migrate to Earth, a younger planet, because a planet has its longevity. And when a planet becomes like a desert, we have to migrate to a younger and newer planet before it becomes a desert. So this is why we are actually seeded from different planets. You're absolutely right on that.
Okay. So, hey, thank you, Christopher Alexander, for being here. The thoughts on this, they're not for everyone. I totally understand that. But I'm, as I mentioned before, I'm listening to this. I'll let you, the listener, make up your mind how you think about these. So the one thing I thought was kind of interesting, or one of the things I should say that I thought was kind of interesting, is the time element in this. Like the reason I'm interested in that is because of the manipulation of time is what a lot of people feel, that when they're having an encounter, they feel as though time has changed. There's something different about it. And I've talked to a lot of people that do, have that idea, like everything. Someone described it once as being in the Matrix, where everything kind of slows down like that, But there's some type of, it would explain how they get here, and some type of time manipulation, time warping, or space-time warpage, or something like that.
Yeah, so they take advantage of the warps or portals to come to Earth. Once they're in the portal or warp, time stops. So this is how the ETs explain this, that there are natural portals. It's like a natural phenomenon in different locations in space on Earth. Not just the Bermuda Triangle, not just the clusters in which people just gone vanish, as documented by David Paulides, not just the parts in Asia or Europe. It actually exists as ribbons on Earth, like they float around in space. But once you're sucked into the portals, time stops. And there are corroborating evidence by David Paulides because he documented a lot of the people who just gone vanished and then came back. And then they seem to they seem to remember some of the things that happened while they were missing, but then there was no loss of time. And there's actually an interesting case in Europe in which a 5-year-old girl who just vanished in a forest. And then years later, when she reappeared, there was no loss of time, because I think she was sucked into the parallel universe. And the ETs take advantage of that by having Michel Desmarquet to come into the parallel universe first, and then to go into their spacecraft, and then they departed. and living in the parallel universe. So if the ETs take our people on Earth into their spacecraft in parallel universe, there wouldn't be any loss of time. And I think that's what happened.
Interesting question here. Were Native Americans originating from Earth if other races came from different planets? Well, I just have a comment to say about that, because the indigenous people of the United States traces back to about morphologically about 15,000 years, possibly a land bridge from Siberia to Alaska, and could be Eastern Asian. East Asian is what they have when they've done research on, Native American peoples. So I don't know if that, I mean, it is interesting how, the migrations have happened and the land masses have changed and all that, but that's a whole different topic.
Yeah, actually, the Native Americans came from a continent that used to exist in the Pacific Ocean called Lemuria. So back, according to this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, back about 250,000 years ago, people from a different planet came to Lemuria, but they encountered Chinese people. The Chinese people were and are still very suspicious, so they had a fight or war with the people from Lemuria. And being very spiritual people, the people from Lemuria did not want to fight and kill the Chinese people. So they retreated back to the far side of the moon and built artificial bases over there as transfer stations so that they could migrate their people step by step, little by little. And then, so that's what they did. So they established a very successful civilization on Lemuria. And nowadays, part of Easter Island and also part of Hawaiian Islands are actually the remnants of the continent of Lemuria that sunk into the ocean about 14,500 years ago. This actually explains why the statues on Easter Island are so interesting. Even with modern technologies, we are not able to duplicate the statues or the stones on Easter Island. It also explains why there are megalithic structures in Latin America and parts of Asia in which no one can explain how they were built. It also explains how the Great Pyramid was built, because the people on Lemuria migrated or colonized another continent called Atlantis, in which the Caucasians, the white people, landed on. And then a very learned person called Thoth, in which the Egyptians considered to be God, when in fact he was a very wise and learned person, a human being, went to Egypt and built the Great Pyramid of Egypt about 17,000 years ago, using anti-gravitational technologies, as well as supersonic vibratory systems to cut the huge stones in a very precise manner. If you think about it, if you can neutralize gravity using a specific kind of vibrational frequency, you can make the huge stones become weightless without weight. And modernly, if you do research, you're going to realize that certain engineering firms use ultrasonic techniques to cut certain materials. So this can be proven using modern technologies. It's just that they haven't been using this ultrasonic technology on huge stones. So there are a lot of things mentioned in the book that are extremely interesting and revealing.
Getting back to, you've said that China is learning basically ET technologies faster. So what data or examples make you think that's happening in some type of measurable way?
By China, I mean the Chinese people, not the government. So we had to distinguish the two. So the Chinese government is just like all the governments, very bureaucratic. And especially in recent years, the Chinese government doesn't really want people to talk about UFOs or ETs or anything that's not in their textbooks. So there's no freedom of speech in China.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know. I had a Chinese correspondent, but he was actually a professor at a college. He was American, but living in China, and he was a professor at a college there. and his name was Mark Sima, and he was on this show a number of times and talking about the relationship between UFOs and the Chinese people. And then all of a sudden, he disappeared. His last post on the Facebook page was talking about being on my show, and then and he disappeared. I've never been able to figure out what happened to him. Mark Sima. So anyway, but he, I mean, there's been a lot of controversy, but some things have happened in China that were pretty interesting. There was that major airport situation. I don't know if you know anything about that. That was quite a while ago. I think it was in the 2015 or before.
Yeah, there are a lot of sightings in China, and also in the 1990s, the Chinese military was on high alert at the UAPs, UFOs in the sky. They were going to attack them, and then they actually sought help from, or informal help from ufologists in China. A very famous one called Dr. Sun Shili, and he was the Spanish interpreter for Chairman Mao in the past. And he was fairly well known in China, but nowadays he is not able to talk publicly about UFOs in China anymore, just like your friend in China. So as a Chinese American, I'm able to share information because I'm American, considered by them. So I'm here in Los Angeles, so I can talk about it. But people in China cannot. They are not reported by the Chinese government. But why I say that the Chinese people are ahead of the Americans in learning ET knowledge. By that, I mean, this book, Thiaoouba Prophecy, got into China as a science fiction to get around the censorship in China. So millions of Chinese people have read this book and are amazed by the information provided in the book. So if you read into the book, you're going to realize that the ETs are so advanced. There's UFOs or spacecraft did not and will never crash on Earth. They are more advanced than the Greys, the ones whose spacecraft crashed on Earth, in which people's attention in the U.S. has been focusing on the Greys, the ones whose spacecraft crashed. And I think it's really a misdirection. You are learning from the ones who failed on Earth. You are not learning from the masters. So I'm trying to encourage the US people, the people in the US, to really learn from the masters. So this is why I've been putting a lot of my time. I'm actually helping people here.
And so you translated that, you had that book translated to Chinese?
Yes, I did.
Mandarin
yes.
or Cantonese or?
Mandarin, yes.
And so, yeah, hey, Jack, UFO Jack's in the chat. How you doing? So, yeah, that's interesting. So that was quite an undertaking to do that, I imagine.
Yeah, so when people want to talk about the subject matter in China, they have to get around it. They have to use another premise to talk about this. So I hope it's going to open up sooner or later, and I think academic discussions are allowed, but not something that would jeopardize the stability of the Chinese government or the country.
So that's what they perceive, it would jeopardize the yeah, how about that? And I wonder how much gets through. I don't know exactly how things worked. I know there's a lot of things that are geo protected. When I spent time in Russia, some shows you couldn't access on your computer, American. So I know it's the same way in China, or I do believe it is. But there's a language barrier too. But still, I noticed that it was just a couple of days ago. I looked all around the world. There's many, many countries that listen to the show. I was surprised that in Russia and Slovenia and all these. But when it comes to the continent of China, zero. Zero are listening to the show on UFOs. And yeah.
Yeah, so YouTube and all the major Western portals or social media websites are blocked in China. So China has its own version of social media, like it has its own version of YouTube and also Facebook. So if you want to get your content to China, you have to upload it onto the Chinese platforms, in which I'm glad to help.
Hmm. And by the way, shout out to all the people listening in Ukraine. There's a number of people that listen in Ukraine, so I was glad to see that. Well, this has been pretty interesting. So, a lot of people may consider, all of what you're saying as fiction. So, and I know you've said there's cases that this book had talked about, and there was the light you mentioned. There was a couple of other things. So, what are what makes you think that he really did this travel instead of it being a visionary thing?
Because of the facts and details contained in the book that were later proven and verified. For example, it talks about the ET's intervention during World War II, preventing Germany from being the first country to develop the atomic bomb. And I verified that. Dr. Heisenberg of Germany was far more advanced and early in developing the atomic bomb than the American scientists. But for some reason, strange reason, he made a very stupid mistake, a miscalculation. And his report was read by Hitler that made Hitler believe that Germany didn't have enough raw materials to make the bomb. So that's why the Americans got ahead and deployed the bomb in Japan, ending the war much earlier than it would have been otherwise. So the ETs intervened in that sense. It also describes in details who Jesus and Christ was. If you read into the book, you're going to realize that Christ indeed was crucified on the cross and then resurrected 3 days after. Why 3 days? This is a natural law, because when a person dies, the astral body leaves the physical body, and then there's the life reveal process. Everything that a person did in his or her lifetime will be shown to him or her holographically, just like playing a film. And then the person will be able to feel how others felt or experienced when certain actions were done onto others. So in a sense, there's an evaluation process, a judgment of your own. And because you are part of the creator and the creator is part of you, in essence, is the creator or yourself evaluating yourself how you did in your lifetime. And then after 3 days, 81% of the electrons of the astral body will go to the higher self. And then the other 19% will remain in nature. This is why in Tibetan culture, the corpse of the dead are not to be touched for 3 days. And this is why Christ resurrected after 3 days. So I think
it's different in different cultures, but I see where you're going. But listen, we only got 2 minutes left, so I'm just going to throw this last question from Alien Girl 77. Are there any well-known UFO cases in China similar to cases like the Phoenix Lights or anything like that you're aware of?
There are so many sightings in China that are countless, recorded by the citizens in China. There are two very famous ET contact cases in which, in the 1990s, a person in northeastern part of China called Mr. Meng was taken by the ETs onto their spacecraft. Actually, he had a lot of interesting experience in which he was shown the natural resources of Earth, indicating that we need to take care of the environment. Otherwise, certain oils or gasolines or natural gas, are going to be depleted in a certain period of time. And then he was told the reasons why they made a contact to him and where they came from. This is one interesting case. And the other interesting case occurred in 1999. A principal of a school, also a government official, was taken by the ETs onto their spacecraft. And then he was taught to heal a person who was diseased, a girl, by putting his hand on the lower back of the neck. And then he imitated and healed the girl. And then and then people studied him and researched his encounters. And then he passed all in both cases, they passed the lie detector test and the psychological examinations. So those are the two well-known cases in China.
Well, thank you. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thanks for being a guest.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, everyone. So we have next week coming up, we have Danielle Silverman on Tuesday night. Going to be talking about a past UFO researcher in England. And then we have Eric Mintel, who I got to know this last year. Great guy. He's on Thursday night at this time next week. And thank you all for being here. And remember to keep your eyes to the sky.